Welcome back to the Heber Valley Life Podcast, where we celebrate the people, places, and stories that make this valley so special. Today, we're talking about one of my favorite things, trails. They connect us to nature, to each other, and to this community in some really powerful ways. Joining me is someone who is helping make that connection possible every single day. Mia Yue, Executive Director of the Wasatch Trails Foundation. Mia has built her life around the outdoors, from snowboarding in the Southern Hemisphere to mountain biking right here in our backyard. So Mia, welcome to our podcast.
Thank you for having me, Rachel.
You have such a cool story. So originally from Minnesota, came out west. I think it's funny when we talk about out west from a Midwesterner.
Yeah.
But attended the University of Colorado Boulder, and then your path has taken you around the world. I would love to hear about your journey and how you ended up here in Little Heber Valley.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, originally, I fell in love with the mountains in Colorado. My aunt had a place out there, and we would go every year for spring break to go snowboarding. And that's when I was like, this is where I need to be. Some type of mountainous environment. So I did go to school in Boulder. And after school, I did the normal thing of being, wanting to take a break. Like, okay, I did my 4 years of college. I'm going to take a break and then I'll go to grad school. And turns out that when you move up to the mountains and you realize how amazing those opportunities can be, your priorities get rearranged. So I didn't go to grad school. I just kept chasing the next opportunity for being able to explore what are outdoors and what this world has to offer. I spent a winter in New Zealand teaching snowboarding and skiing down there. I spent some time in Argentina, same thing, at a resort, and just have really fallen in love with that type of lifestyle, with this type of lifestyle that we're able to accomplish here in the mountains.
Okay, but I'm so curious how you ended up in Utah. And I know a lot of people compare Colorado Rockies to the Utah Rockies. They are very different. I would say Utah has the accessibility where, you fly in 45 minutes, you're in the mountains, but Colorado definitely has the peaks.
Yeah, different strokes. I think there is something for everyone in every mountain town. At the time, I went to school in Boulder, moved up to Summit County, Colorado, had lived up there for a handful of years, and was kind of looking for the next step, the next opportunity. I was working at Copper Mountain as a supervisor in the ski school and just looking for, the next phase of my career and my life in the mountains. And at the time I was dating someone who worked for the U.S. ski team. And he was like, I'm going to move to Park City. And I was like, okay, yeah, all right, me too. So I moved out. I worked at the canyons for a while and lived in Park City for actually the first winter that I moved out here in 2013. I lived in Heber. And in 2013, Heber looked a little different than it does now. And I had a challenging time finding my community. And so that's when we decided to move up to Park City, lived up in Park City for 6 years, kind of went through my restaurant journey, if you will, still working at the canyons. And over the years, I've also coached for the Park City ski and snowboard team and still been very involved with the snow sports industry. And at a certain point, I was like, this is great and fun, but I kind of want to, take it down a notch, like slow life down a little bit. I lived on Main Street in Park City, so it was immersed. It was Park City. Yes, absolutely. And it was a blast. It was one of the most, amazing, fun times of my entire life. And then in my early 30s, I was like, okay, I think I could slow down a bit. So looked at, moving down to the Heber Valley again, buying some real estate. And that's how I ended up here.
So amazing. I want to go back to your comment about Heber looking different in 2013. Fast forward to 2025. Obviously, Heber is much quieter than Park City. We don't have the nightlife of Park City. But I would say even from an outdoor recreation standpoint, the access and availability of outdoor rec from 2013 to now is very different. And let's just walk through that because in a lot of ways, I looked at Park City and especially the Trails Foundation there and was very envious. But they also had the ski resorts that were really driving that trail development. Park City and Deer Valley were both looking to grow their summer recreation, keep people here year round. And we weren't as interested in that, I think, from a community standpoint. But there's been this holistic change, I feel like, from trail development, accessibility to the mountains. And maybe it's because of people like you that saw what was happening in Park City and said, well, why can't we do that here? So talk me through just your experience with that.
Yeah, I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head there. So a big part of the Wasatch Trails Foundation was originally the Wasatch Trail Alliance. And it was started 2011, I believe, was when we were incorporated. And it was originally sort of formed to, take the next step for the trail system here. And because of, one reason or another, we didn't have the funding to hire someone full time. It kind of became dormant for a little while.
For sure.
And like you said, the people living in this valley looking at the Park City trail system and saying, we have all of this opportunity here. Like, how can we make this happen? There really was a small group of people who sort of picked it back up and said, let's really make this happen. And I joke and say that it was a bunch of mountain bike bros who got a hold of the foundation and they said, let's change the name to the Wasatch Trails Foundation so we can call it WTF. And
I didn't think about, okay, guys, I know.
So that was kind of when everything got reinvigorated, really thanks to Eric Porter. He was a huge proponent of the Trail Foundation, and Don Taylor, who has been involved in mountain trails in the Slick Rock Trail system in Moab. Like, Don Taylor is an absolute legend and has done more for this state, for Utah. I can't sing his praises enough. More for Utah in the single track trail realm than any other single individual has. So we were very fortunate to have these people sort of pick up the baton and start to think about, okay, Park City has this amazing trail system. We have all of this opportunity. How do we start to move towards that and give our community and our residents that same access that Park City has?
Yeah. So I want to pause because I want to give credit to Don Taylor and Eric Porter, but I think we need to understand who they are. Eric Porter, professional mountain biker, lives here in the Valley, but I think outside of the mountain bike world isn't as well known. So let's talk about Eric's background and just truly what he's done for this community.
Yeah, I mean, I say that Eric is the original influencer. Pre-Instagram, and I can only talk so much about Porter because I don't know his whole entire life story, but the way that I see it and the amazing things that he's done for this community, a lot of athletes you see after their professional careers, some of them do really well and some of them sort of peter out. And I think Porter has done a phenomenal job with essentially creating his content channel and staying relevant throughout the course of his life as he gets older and as his kids get older and they're able to be involved in that. So yeah, Eric Porter, the OG influencer in the mountain bike space.
And one of the coolest backyards.
Yeah. They have a whole little bike park in the backyard in Midway.
Yeah. But I really think it's because of Don Taylor and Eric Porter and those influences that we did see a rise in mountain biking. I feel like Eric had a huge influence on the creation of the Wasatch High School mountain bike team, which is now 150 plus strong.
Mm-hmm.
And you see so many parents that are involved that didn't really know anything, but showed up and said, hey, I'm willing to be a ride leader. And now you've got generational people that are coming back and not necessarily kids having kids in the program because it's that new. But the growth that we've seen with the Wasatch Mountain Bike program is really phenomenal.
Well, and I think that's such a key piece to our community and our trail system, because eventually we all get old, and that is the next generation to, pick up the torch and advocate for trails and make sure that everything is safe and maintained, and that everyone, their kids and future generations have the access that we do.
Yeah. So let's talk about the partnership. So we talked about Park City really had the opportunity because Vail and Deer Valley saw an opportunity to bring summer mountain biking. Here we have the Wasatch Mountain State Park, 24,000 acres, Soldier Hollow, Dutch Hollow, Jordanelle Ridge, Sky Ridge, Big Pole, Blue Sage. Am I missing any?
Well, we have Deer Creek Reservoir and Jordanelle State Park, and at the whole Wildwood Venlock developments. So there really is endless opportunity for trails in the valley. And with Park City, in speaking of Deer Valley and Park City Mountain, I don't want us to forget about the Mountain Trails Foundation, because they have done so much. Charlie and Laura now as their executive director, and just everyone who has been a part of that foundation has really done a lot for the Park City trail system as well. So Hans, everyone.
But what's impressive though is these are volunteers. Both Mountain Trails and the Wasatch Trails Foundation, it's based on the back of volunteers, of dirt crews that are willing to come in. Obviously, it takes manpower, but it also takes machinery. And Wasatch Mountain State Park, when they first started to develop these single tracks, I remember Dutch Hollow, they kind of didn't know what they were doing. And no offense to those, but they've had to go back and redo a lot of those trails. And it's been interesting over the years to see them lay that sagebrush down on trails that were too steep or trails that weren't interesting. And Don's done a fabulous job. He's had the Aqueduct Trail that's named after him. I think the barrel. Yeah, he has the lasagna over there still. But let's talk about how we build trails and how that's laid out, because I don't think people realize how complicated it is.
Yeah, I mean, so I say that Don Taylor was the original pirate trail builder. I think Don and perhaps, I'm not sure if you would want me to say this, but Doug Smith and a handful of other people in our community.
Johnson, we know
down there. Yeah. We're out.
Even Perry Dixon.
Yeah, we're out in the community, kind of before there was, more strict regulations that we see now. But they were out building Dutch by hand. And I think that it's super important to honor the sort of old school type of trail of single track trails, as well as sort of the new age idea of where our industry is moving now is purpose built trails.
Yeah.
And also separated use. So avoiding user conflict, but also ensuring that everyone has the best possible experience when we can. So a mountain bike trail looks different than an equestrian trail, looks different than a hiking or trail running trail. And so I think in terms of the process of building these trails, it all starts with the relationships. We work very closely with Jonathan Hunt and Kathy Donnell at the state park, and we couldn't be more grateful for the relationship that we have with them. And I think that feeling is mutual. The state park is, like you said, it's a massive piece of property in our valley that has so much potential. However, the staff there is restricted by the amount of funding that they're able to receive from state parks in general. I was having a conversation with Jonathan one day, and I said, what is the mentality around trail maintenance? Because there's, 50, 60 more miles of single track and even more 4x4 roads and moto trails. And I said, what is the mentality around trail maintenance? And he said, well, in general, the parks view trail maintenance like they view the campgrounds, where we rely heavily on volunteers to be able to accomplish it. And in a park like, Deer Creek, for example, they have very few miles of single track trails. So that's reasonable.
Yeah.
With the Wasatch Mountain State Park, 60 plus miles of single track non-motorized trail, that's not as feasible with volunteers only. So I think that relationship and us having, originally written the grant to build the WOW Trail, and most recently, the connector trail from the WOW to the Bonanza Loop Trail. It's super important for entities like WTF nonprofits to exist in communities to help support those agencies that maybe have their hands tied.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to paint a picture though. So a couple weeks ago, I was up at Bonanza, parked, paid my parking to be there. And all of a sudden, I'm watching mountain bikers going through this loop that I didn't know existed. I now know the BLT trail. And I was aware of the WOW Trail, 7 miles downhill. You park at the top and bike all the way down. It's fabulous. I have gone up and over the trail, endoed, and decided I'm probably not ready for the WOW. But I had this experience that day where I was really in awe of the opportunity that the Bonanza Flat Wilderness Conservation Easement has created.
Mm-hmm.
And then even more so as I started to look into the BLT connector to the WOW and realized this hasn't just happened. This has been very purposeful. It's Wasatch Trails Foundation in conjunction with the volunteers and the workers that are preserving Bonanza and Mountain Trails Association. And just recently saw a picture of kind of the group that was behind that doing almost their own ribbon cutting, which was first ride, I guess. So talk to me about that, because it was really one of the most beautiful afternoons, autumn afternoon, everything was golden and yellow. But to be able to see hikers and bikers, and then just the people that are stepping out of their cars and never even stepping onto a trail, it was really beautiful. It was one of those moments like, this is what access to the wilderness is all about. So talk to me about that connector, because I think it was a lot more work than people probably recognize, especially someone that just drives up there on an autumn day and doesn't appreciate the work behind it.
Yeah, it's funny. The connector was, let me back up. The connector was originally conceptualized when the WOW Trail was built. So that was, I think the WOW Trail originally sort of got started when the foundation got started, like 2011, 2012, and then was perhaps finished around 2015. But the WOW Trail was always in the back of our minds. Like, this is how we're going to get to Park City. This is how we're going to connect our communities. When we were hiking around this, I guess 2 years ago now, Rick Fourier, the trails manager at Mountain Trails, Scott House, who's my predecessor and now our board president, and also works with Park City Chamber. They were the ones originally up there hiking around in this terrain. And when Rick and I were up there 2 years ago, I was like, you two must have been crazy. Like the terrain up there is insane. Like, and it's absolutely stunning, but really, really challenging, and a very, 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 I guess, tall order to be like, oh yeah, we're just going to connect right over this saddle here from the WOW.
That's what I mean. Like, I saw that it all finished and completed, but I thought, who had this vision? And then when I saw the post of the first ride, I thought, these people have to be commended for having the vision and the fortitude to say, hey, we want to work together. And it's just not a connector trail. It truly is a connector of communities.
Yeah.
And I don't know if people are aware that so many people from Park City have come over and really helped with the development of our trails here.
Absolutely. So specifically this trail. So there's a few different segments of it. It connects the Wow Trail to the Bonanza Loop Trail in the conservation easement. And there is the trail that connects from Bonanza up and over the peak is called Talty. And that peak is called Talty by Brighton Estates residents. And then on the Wasatch Mountain State Park side, we actually have a directional loop for mountain bikes.
Right.
So there is from the Wow Trail, you can hike or ride up an uphill trail. And then when you get to near it's called Boulder Basin or 88 acres. When you get to that area, that's when you connect into Talty to go up and over. Or we also built with Mountain Trails a downhill only section of trail that has a bunch of wood features. It's a blue trail, so, many people can ride it, but there are a lot of advanced and expert options on the trail too. So luckily, our partners at the state park, Jonathan, I mentioned him, we don't have the state parks in general don't have a lot of this type of trail or any of this type of trail in it. And so we're super grateful that Jonathan is, willing to work with our group of hikers, mountain bikers, to make a trail that is so unique and so different for our area. So that trail, again, Wasatch Trails Foundation wrote the grant for this trail in 2019. And like I said, it was dreamt up far earlier than that. And the funding was awarded in 2019. And because of so many challenges with, politics, always politics, with the state park, with the conservation easement, with needing to make sure that we honored what was listed in the conservation easement, and that's held by Utah Open Land. So we worked very closely with Wendy Fisher, and it was right around the time that the Park City, well, I guess the second extension was right around the time when the Park City government kind of turned over, new mayor, new council, that kind of thing. And so there was just a lot with this project and with that conservation easement that was up in the air. And I stepped into this project kind of mid-swing, if you will. I've only been with the foundation for 3 years now. And there were multiple times that I was like, it's not going to happen. We're not going to do it. We're not going to be able to make this happen. We ended up having to have 3 grant extensions for this project, which is not ideal. When the Department of Outdoor Rec or the Division of Outdoor Rec gives you money, they want you to spend it. And they don't want that money tied up for, this has been obviously 6 years now. So we have been extremely fortunate. And actually, one of the last photos that we posted was with the Division of Outdoor Rec team, the director, Jason Curry, and his grant team. We were able to finally show them this amazing trail, this amazing project. And Jason actually came to me afterward and he said that was the most fun I've had all summer, which is huge. Yeah, just huge.
They're supporting a lot of projects.
Absolutely.
But I think it shows just it's not always a direct path, and it's a lot harder than it looks. And it shouldn't be, but that's just how it goes.
Yeah. And I think, some trails are easy. We built the new advanced downhill trail that parallels the bottom of the Wow Trail. That trail also was conceptualized when the Wow was built, and we had some challenges getting it across the line, just because park management wasn't sure that it was, safe. This is an advanced expert trail. It's a double black diamond trail, and we worked pretty hard on. I don't want to say convincing, but showing the stakeholders why it was going to be a good addition to the trail system. Not only does it take those like fast DH riders off of the bottom of the Wow Trail where everybody from the campground is hiking up or pedaling up, but it provides the type of trail that is not really offered legally, we'll say. There's a lot of sort of unsanctioned trails or skid trails these days that are popping up because there's a need for that type of advanced and expert mountain bike trail. And so as soon as we got the approval for the we used to call it Springer Hollow because that's what the drainage is, but now it's called WOA. So we have WOW and WOA.
And then Wowza.
And Wowza, exactly.
So I kind of love that Wasatch over Wasatch has really become this kind of namesake for that area.
Yeah,
very right. I want to talk about funding because you talked about grants, and we now have the TAP tax, Trails, Arts, and Parks. Wasatch County has its own allocation as well as Heber City and Midway. But because of that funding, you've been able to do some really fun projects. So currently working on a pump track at Southfield Park.
Yes.
Talk to me about that. Who's the audience? What's the expectation of use?
So the TAP tax has been instrumental in the success of the Trails Foundation in the last couple of years. We were able, thanks to the TAP tax and all entities who hold it, so Wasatch County, Midway City, and Heber City, thanks to the TAP tax, we were able to hire our seasonal trail crew for the first time. We've never had a trail crew who's working, we have 4 people working 40 hours a week all summer long on our trails. And we owe that all to the TAP tax. Granted, we were able to bring the trail crew on the year before with the support of the Mountain Trails Foundation and mainly using grant funding that we had for multiple different projects. But this year was the first time that our community took an active role in supporting the backcountry trail system, which is a huge win for us. And I would like to say that, I'm like, well, let's see, what's a good word? That's a good way to say this year. I wish that had happened earlier. However, I do understand that the TAP tax essentially was passed for things like this. And the first
establishment funding mechanism. And I think it's important to note that the TAP tax, the Trails, Arts, and Parks tax, is a sales tax percentage that was approved by the community.
Yes.
Because I think the community saw the need and valued what the TAP tax was going to represent.
Yes.
And even then, there were some opponents of it because they say, well, why is it not a use tax? Because the reality is it's really difficult to charge for trail use because of the access points could be anywhere. And, Wasatch Mountain State Park asks you to buy a season pass, an annual pass, or a day pass. But the TAP tax is doing exactly what you said. It's providing a funding mechanism to put people on the ground that are working day in and day out to both develop and maintain. And before, there was no funding mechanism to allow for that kind of service.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I hope that people hearing this and getting out on the trails realize that it was because of the support of this community that these projects are moving forward.
Yes.
And I think projects like the pump track, which is much more visible, because if you're not on the trails, if you're not a trail user, you don't often value that. People value what they can see, but that pump track is something that's going to be very visible right there on Midway Lane, Southfield Road. It's under development. When do we hope to open it? And who do you think is going to use it?
Well, I hope that everyone will use it. So I'll back up a little bit. Like you said, access and visibility. So the pump track is not typically what we do as a backcountry trail foundation. However, access, we've talked about that. Sometimes backcountry trails aren't accessible to people. If you don't have a vehicle, or if you're younger and you can't drive yet, or your parents are at work, or whatever the reason is, you don't have an expensive mountain bike or nice running shoes, and you don't need an expensive mountain bike. That's important to know. Absolutely. And so one of the things that the board really wanted to do was create this accessible amenity. And we were so fortunate to be able to work with the Parks and Rec department. And, Heath Coleman, has the new director of Wasatch County Parks and Rec, has been in our corner from the very beginning. He said, let's do it, full steam ahead. Let me know how we can make this happen. And we only wrote the grant for this project in, last winter, and the pump track is already finished. And I do want to call out a number of people who helped us accomplish this. Midway City, Heber City, Wasatch County, the Tap Tax, Wasatch County Parks and Rec Department, the Wasatch Community Foundation provided a large match for us to be able to access those grant funds, the recreation pillars specifically. Heber Valley Brewing and Gravity Coalition in Midway, the Taylor family, Don, of course, and his son Dylan. But this project is really an example of the entire community coming together and creating a accessible amenity for anyone, not just bikers. You can ride a skateboard, you can ride a scooter, you could there's a separate TOTS track that's just a little figure eight next to the main track that all of the little strider bikes or like small scooters can access and use without being in the flow of the main track, right? Which is I guess some of the lines in there are a little bit gnarlier. So one of the things that we talked to our contractor, Avid Trails, about, because we don't do asphalt, so we hired someone to do it, was that we want everybody to ride it. We want beginners, we want intermediate, we want people like Eric Porter to be able to have fun on this track, and people who ride bikes and scooters and skateboards and all of it. We also had the National Ability Center come down while we were shaping the track and bring all of their adaptive cycles and run the adaptive cycles through the track. So we knew that there was a way for that type of cycle to be able to get through it as well. So this project has been, myself, and I'm sure a lot of people in this community know Tori Broughton. It has sort of been our baby, along with the Wasatch Trails Foundation board that we've had a ton of support from. But I think this really is just this community amenity that is free and open to public. It is on the Midway Lane Trail. The Rail Width Trail will come into this area as well. There will be multiple ways to access it safely, riding your bike to it, walking to it, whatever it is. And like I said, you don't have to have anything special to use it. So it is for everyone. It's for young, old, beginner, advanced, every single person. So
it's needed, but it's amazing that you talk about the different users and ability and disability, and you're really thinking of every type of person that could possibly use it. So thank you.
Yeah, fantastic. And to answer your question of when it will be finished, we hoped to have the asphalt down this fall, but as you and this community knows, it kind of got chilly and stayed a little bit cold and wet. And we have a bit of sort of landscaping. We're going to put another concrete pad. We're going to put a shade structure closer to the track so parents can watch their kids and be in the shade. So we do have a little bit of landscaping still to finish up. But essentially, we're the top of the list for Avid to come out in the spring and pave it. And then that'll only take, they think, 5 days.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And then we'll have, maybe 2 weeks of landscaping and hit the ground running, hopefully, depending on weather.
2026 for sure.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, I love it.
Depending. I want to transition because we've been talking a lot about public lands. I want to talk about specifically the work that Ken McCarkey is doing on Jordan Ridge. Because it is developer paid, developer sponsored, but it's increasing accessibility onto private land. I don't think a lot of people realize that, hey, we've got this whole trail system that you wouldn't have had it not been for really the kindness and the vision of the developer, because the development was 10 years, 12 years after the fact. Can we talk about just Jordan L. Ridge, particularly in Sky Ridge? It's kind of the same thing. Then we saw the county requiring that of additional developments. So Blue Sage now has trail requirements, and it's kind of been a staple now. If you want to develop in Wasatch County, you better have a trail plan with your development plan. So talk me through kind of your experience and what Ken's doing up there.
Yeah, I think first and foremost, Mike Bradshaw with Momentum Development. Mike is obviously people have a lot of feelings about development. And from the perspective of the Trails Foundation, Mike Bradshaw is sort of the example of what we would like to see in a developer. Mike employs Ken to help manage that trail system. So if when the development is happening and, a trail gets taken out or needs to be rerouted, Ken is there pretty much the next day to assist with that. And our role in this is we support Ken and his trails as much as we can. He really likes to build trails, obviously, which is great for us.
And he has the power tools to do it.
Yes. Yeah. He has the excavator and he has everything. So while Ken is building trails, we're doing, I guess we're in the background, maintaining or essentially just doing whatever Ken is asking of us. So we recently, went up and maintained sheep bones, and he asked the crew to come help him finish some of the new trails that he was building, the Beep Beep Trail over near Highway 32.
Yeah.
So I think that it is really impactful to have a developer like that who understands the importance of the trail system. And I think it would be, it wouldn't be out of the question for Momentum Development to say, hey, we're going to close these trails while we develop. It's too dangerous to have these people on the trails at the same time.
But that's where you see the public outrage. And I think, okay, wait a minute. You don't understand that you wouldn't have access had it not been for a developer that said, hey, we value trail development. We want you to come and experience this area because it is a beautiful area. It's got a great view of Timpanogos. And that's what I find so interesting. And I think it's just that misunderstanding.
Absolutely. Education, right. People don't understand.
Right.
And they just don't know. So it's not anyone's fault. But yeah, I have this conversation a lot with people, believe it or not, my thoughts on Jordan L. Ridge. And one of the things that I bring up a lot is, so originally, before Bradshaw and before Ken, like the Trails Foundation helped with the trail system up there. And we had the Coyote Canyon Loop. And that was pretty much it in that area. And I think there's a lot of people now who don't realize how many trails Ken has built and how great they are, how fun they are. Mountain bike specific trails, and all different types of trails, and, flow and tech and that kind of thing. But I always say to people that trail system ultimately will be better in the long run, because a lot of the trails that existed on there originally were what we call like old school trails. They're not up to current industry standard with drainage. They're a multi-use trail. So they're, fine for everyone, but they're not like overly amazing for any specific user group. So as we see that area develop, and as we see the trails system morph and change, ultimately the newer trails that we're able to build are going to be, in my opinion, we want to say better, but more sustainable, more resilient, and more focused on the types of trails that the industry is looking for now. So people are like, oh, well, that's your silver lining. I'm like, it is the silver lining. Like, it's great that we're going to have new and better trails
and professionally built. Ken really is a pro at what he's doing. Who's naming the trails? Because I absolutely loved Mordor, Hobbiton, that throw to the Hobbit series. And then Wiley E., Coyote, Looney Tunes, Beep.
Because naming the trails. But that's how the industry works.
Yeah.
Whoever in general whoever builds the trail names the trail. I love it.
Well, I think it's very fun.
Yeah.
Okay, I do have a personal question because as I get older, I've invested in an e-bike. So let's talk about e-bikes just for a minute, because I know you are still young, and I love that you're guiding these women bike outings, encouraging women to get out on their mountain bikes. What do you see as far as mountain bike versus e-bike? Let's just touch on that for a minute.
Oh yeah, this is the hot topic right now, obviously. So from my professional opinion, I believe that there is a place for everyone. And if, someone who is older or potentially has an old injury or some type of disability, and if e-biking is the way that they access our trails and the outdoor spaces, then I support that. I think that there are a lot of conversation that are being had in our space of what do the trails look like when they are like, do we build specific e-bike trails? Or do we allow e-bikes on this system, but not that system? We're lucky in our valley down here. You can ride your class 1 e-bike anywhere. And from my perspective and the perspective of the board, we haven't had any issues with that. People will say, well, somebody's pedaling up fast behind me and then passing me on the uphill. And no matter what, there will always be user conflict on multi-use trails. And in the grand scheme of things, here in the Heber Valley, e-bike conflict is, in my experience, no more than an equestrian conflict.
I feel it's an ability issue, though. So I would not have the ability to hike or to bike uphill had it not been for the e-bike. And so I have a sister that we ride the Wiley E. And it was fun. The last time we rode it, we had a gentleman say, well, you're going to beat me on the uphill, but I'll beat you on the downhill. And he did. And he was probably 10 years older than me. And I thought, well, good on you for being here. And he was just as complimentary to us. Hey, ladies. And it's that respect. It's that give and take. And hey, we're going to pause here. We're going to let you pass us on the downhill. He paused and let us pass him on the uphill. It really does come down to that awareness of what's around you and that respect of who's using the trails. It was interesting on that same day, we were coming down and we could hear voices below us. And so we slowed down and the whole family was way into the trail system. Dog, kids, and I thought, grandparents. And I thought, wow, do you know how far you have to go to get back to the car? But I was so glad to see them because it was a beautiful fall day. And I think it really does come down to respect. And I'm so grateful that we haven't put limitations on e-bikes while the county and the cities are putting some guidelines in for e-bikes, which is more about the neighborhood use. There has been some vehicle e-bike issues. But I hope that we don't have to put limitations on e-bikes.
And from our perspective as the Trails Foundation, and the board shares this perspective, and honestly, I have an e-bike also. Yeah. I don't ride it all time. It's the best purchase I've made the last time. They're so fun. But I mean, so like the family that you talked about, like that's character building, right? That is probably a memory, even if they did get stuck out there or it's no longer any of that, I'm sure. But like that is essentially, so our mission from the Wasatch Trails Foundation is to create memorable experiences for our community. And I guarantee you that was a memorable experience for them.
Oh, it was the most beautiful day. It really was.
But I would like to say that a lot of people are like, well, we don't want e-bikes on our trails because they ruin the trails. And I think that comes with a million caveats. Like my partner, Brent, him on his regular bike, he's still far heavier than me on my e-bike. So I think that, that's a way that people are like, oh, we don't want e-bikes because they ruin the trails. Now, granted, potentially more people biking, are harder on the trails, but it's not just because this one person on this one heavy bike is riding crazier or faster, and that one person is going to rue the trails. So I do want to get that out there, because I think that there's just a lot that is tied into the whole e-bike issue. And I think, like you said, it all comes down to just respect. Like, be kind, be nice to each other, say hi. I think up in Park City, they're doing a new campaign that's like slow down and say hi or something like that. But yeah, it is Moab actually is I'm not sure if it's official, but they just opened up their trail system to a bunch of e-bikes. So now you have a place to go.
There we go. Exploring time. Well, I'm curious, if someone wants to support the trails, what's the best way? I know volunteering, the dirt crew, how can they get involved?
Thank you for asking. So there are a lot of ways that people can get involved. So since we are a nonprofit, we do rely on contributions, and whether that's from a labor standpoint, like all of our grant funding is also tied to in kind, which essentially means volunteer hours on the trails. We can access more grant funding with more volunteer hours on the trails. So whether that's volunteering, whether it's a financial donation to the foundation, or just spreading the word, honestly. There's a lot of people still in this valley, and there's a lot of people that are moving into the valley who come from different places, and different states and different areas do it differently. Some people have, like Breckenridge, Colorado, it's all municipal. It's funded by the town of Breckenridge. The trail crew is the trail building, the maintenance. And I think that it's important for people to understand here that we are a nonprofit and we rely on, like I said, contribution, the community. However, the community can step up. Exactly. And granted, the tap tax has been a huge piece of that. However, as much as I would like to say, yeah, we're good. Like, that funds our trail crew, but it doesn't fund the organization. And so I would encourage people to go to our website, wasatchtrails.org, sign up for our email list, find out when our volunteer days are. We have, as you probably know, Live PC, Give PC is coming up. It's the Park City Community Foundation's day of nonprofit giving. It's November 7th. There's a bunch of different prizes for all of the nonprofits that are involved. So essentially, you have to be accepted into Live PC, Give PC, you have to be a nonprofit in Summit or Wasatch County that serves the community.
Yeah. I don't think people realize that program really is supporting both communities.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's important.
I think it is important. And there's so many people who live in our community who work in the Park City community. And really, like, we're all one community, let's be honest. But so Live PC, Give PC is on the 7th. We would love for people to donate on that day. All donations get matched. So if you donate $50, it's like donating $100. So that's a great day to donate. That's livepcgivepc.org. There's also I think there's like 120 other organizations. So I encourage people to go through and look at all the other amazing nonprofits that are serving our community and donate towards them. But for us, yeah, wasatchtrails.org. I'm happy for people to reach out to the email if they have, questions for us about contribution or trail days or anything, info@wasatchtrailsfoundation.org. And, follow us on Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn and
all. This has been so good. I could ask you many questions because I am a trail user and do love. But I have a couple of rapid fire questions. Okay. Favorite restaurant in the Heber Valley?
Just have a little India fine dining. I love it.
Butter chicken?
I like the your lamb chicken coconut korma. But always the spicy. Yeah,
I love it.
And I actually, that is probably tied with Hidden Peak Provisions.
Yeah,
they do a great job. Yeah.
Okay, all-time favorite trail, and you do have to pick one.
All-time favorite trail. I used to say the lowest section of Fire Swamp, which is a blind trail on Deer Valley Resort. But currently, it's the new advanced downhill trail that we built, which is called Whoa. It's so fun, and it just has a lot of options. And it was fully hand dug. So also supported by the Tap Tax. Wasatch County gave us a little bit of funding to help with that. But yeah, fully hand dug. The ravine is too gnarly to get a machine into. So we had probably 100 community members and our trail crew to come together to make that trail happen.
Which really makes it that much more important, though, that it was the hand digging, it was the volunteers that put their time in.
Yeah.
All right. Favorite post-ride recovery routine? Or do you just be like, that was amazing?
Oh, man. Can I say drinking beer?
Yes, she can. This is an adult show.
Oh, yeah. I think eating and drinking.
You're my Potter. You're burning a lot of calories. So I don't even know if you have earphones in, but if you did, what song would be on your riding playlist?
Oh my gosh. Wow. Yeah, that is definitely something by The Offspring. The Offspring is like one of my all-time favorite bands.
All right, I'll have to look them up.
I don't know. I think you would recognize them. They're like a late mid-90s band.
Rock band. That's in my ear. So my last question, dream trail destination that you haven't ridden yet. So you've been Southern Hemisphere. I'm sure you've been Western United States. What would be that dream?
I'd really like to go to Madeira. It's an island off the coast of Portugal. And they have some really pretty advanced extreme mountain biking there. And they're known for their winemaking as well. So, but yeah, Madeira is the absolute top of my list.
Oh, I hope you get there. Yeah, this has been so informational. Honestly, I knew this was going to be good, and it's taken a couple weeks to get us together, but I just want to thank you for everything you're doing with Wasatch Trails Foundation, keeping our community connected, like literally and figuratively. You are such a force, and I see you at so many events, just trying to get awareness out of the Wasatch Trails Foundation, the fundraising efforts. So if you are listening and you want to get involved, wasatchtrails.org. Yes. Find Mia. She is everywhere. But until next time, get outside, enjoy the trails. We'll see you out there.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you.